I'm here with Will Stroll and Daniel Mettler. And hey, Daniel, Will, welcome to another month of the Community Hangout. So really looking forward to this month, getting some good insight from Daniel. What's on store for us today, Will?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, well, thank you everybody for watching this episode of the DNN Community Hangout. But there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and everything has to do with the end of this week. But before, just do a couple introductions. So you see Joe's from DNN Corp, and you can talk about who he is. My name is Will Stroll. I'm with Hotcakes Commerce. And our next episode is going to be December, and we're going to be talking to Aderson. Oh shoot, Aderson Oliveira. I get it wrong every time, and him and I had this whole conversation over email and everything, and I even talked to somebody else about this, and I can never remember how to pronounce his name. But he's from DNN Hero, so we'll be having him next month.
Awesome, awesome. And what is Daniel going to be talking to us about today?
Yeah, so we're gonna introduce Daniel next. So Daniel, it was very much a pleasure to have Daniel on this month. He's been probably one of the most highly frequent content contributors for DNN over the past few months. There's almost no way to miss that Daniel exists. So it was very exciting to get him to be part of this, and I had the pleasure of meeting him at the last DNN Connect in Italy, and it was very cool to get to know him. He's a very, very interesting individual, probably one of the more interesting people I've met, and he's with Too Sick. So you might know him from the Too Sexy content type stuff and some of his recent blog posts about MVC and Razor and Angular and things like that. And so we're very pleased to welcome Daniel Mettler all the way from Switzerland, but right now he's in Miami. In fact, we're all in different places today.
Yeah, no, I have to say, Daniel, the Too Sexy content is what a great name for a module, and it's always good to see people with a little bit of humor in the community and give a little bit of personality to things.
Yeah, thanks for that. But we actually had to kind of key down the name a little bit, so now it's just called 2SXC. So if you pronounce it, it's still Too Sexy, but the customers of the users don't get too embarrassed when they hit your button.
Yeah, that was a very interesting story. I remember hearing that one at DNN Connect as well. So just another example, when you go to these DNN events, some very fun connections and stories that you get to see and hear, and sometimes you just can't talk about them online like this.
Yeah, no, definitely some good times. So what else is going on in the community, Will? Anything we should be aware of?
Oops, I accidentally clicked the camera button instead of the mute button for a second. So we got some things to talk about for the community, but I did want to, before we get to the DNN news, just talk to Daniel a little bit first. And so do have some questions that to get some people in the community to know Daniel a little bit better, because not everybody knows who he is, especially in North America. They've seen his name, and that's probably about it. So the first thing is as Daniel, he basically is the founder of Too Sick, and Too Sick's been around a long time. So how long has Too Sick been around, Daniel?
Well, actually, let me just see. Am I muted? No, I think I'm on. Okay. Yep. Actually, I founded it in 1999, so that's been quite a while. And we started with DNN in 2003. Before that, we had our own XML-based CMS, one that I had developed. And basically, we just figured out that the open source community moves so much faster than any individual that we figured, let's just screw that and go ahead and use the standard at that time. Yep.
Yeah. So you founded Too Sick a long time ago, and how old were you when you founded it?
19 or 20. I just came back from the jungle 4 years before that, and I learned German, and during school, while learning all that stuff, I figured you might as well just make an internet company while we're at it.
Yeah, so that leads into a very interesting conversation about like just like who you are as a person. You didn't grow up with what I would call like in where I'm from, like what I know, a traditional kind of like upbringing. You bounced around a lot, right?
Yeah, you could basically say that. Actually, the first like 20 years of my life, I lived in a different place every single year. So my parents were missionaries down in Indonesia. So basically, I'd get born in Switzerland, move to England to learn English, go to Papua New Guinea to learn how to get malaria, work out how to kill snakes, butcher pigs. Seriously, like when you're 5 years old and somebody comes with a spear and shows you how to kill a pig, that's like traumatizing experience. But it's tough, but you learn. So. And then you moved on to Indonesia, and you learn, how to work with naked people, and so I learned my fourth language actually when I was 6 years old, and just moved around a lot of the time without any electricity or anything. But since my parents were missionaries, they needed the computer to do the language studying, and they would like pick one of 1,000 languages and figure out how to put that in writing. So they needed a computer for that, and that's how I learned programming with the computer charged with a battery from a big truck that they would always bring to us with a boat, so that we could operate our machines.
So you got a lot of different backgrounds coming into this, and now we have finally discovered why that module is called Too Sexy Content. It's working with a lot of naked people as a kid. That's an awesome story. That's some of the cool things. So 2.6 stands for to serve, to invent, to create. And I was curious, what led you to create that name?
It's almost like Too Sexy Content. The original version meant something different.
Do we dare ask, or should that just be another story for DNN Con?
You're worried about leaving this part out?
I think anybody that needs to know that should come to the fishing trip on Thursday.
Sounds good. I like it. So rebranding gone good. I like it.
Note to self: get a bleep sound effect for next month, and just in case.
Yeah.
One long bleep, beep, and he's done talking about it.
Well, let's be serious about it. I mean, DNN used to be .NET Nuke, so that's also something that kind of got recensored on the way.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, not exactly like Kentucky Fried Chicken. Yeah, so I'm curious as to how and you found DNN and why you chose to kind of focus on it as a standard.
I don't know who's been with the DNN for so long, but basically in 2003 there were all these PHP CMSs coming out, and in the Windows world the world was much, much smaller. For me it was clear that it would have to be a Windows solution, just because of connecting into customer systems. Now I get a very loud sound here. Joe, could you maybe mute yourself? I'm guessing it's coming from your side, but I'm not sure. I think that helped a lot. Okay, so basically that's just how we had to evaluate everything, and there was more or less like umbrella CMS. I'm not even sure whether you guys remember that. And there was DNN, and basically we just always try to figure out what will still be running in 5 to 10 years, because whatever we do today we'll have to support forever. And in the end we just kind of said, okay, we're going to go for DNN, and we were really, really glad, because like about a half a year later the other CMS basically collapsed.
Well, that's pretty cool. So it's so you decided something that you wanted to have for stability, and DNN just kind of won out, which at the time that's very, very interesting. So I would venture to guess at that time, with the explosiveness of how the community was growing and the activity of the content, it just sounded like a good bet. And with you coming from PHP, was technology kind of part of your decision-making process?
Yes, actually we didn't come from PHP. Basically when I grew up I started with Visual Basic at that time, so we were already Microsoft server focused at that time, but the XML system that I built had also been built on .NET. And the question was, how do you invest for something that will kind of last forever? And so of course I think one of the most important things if you choose a technology today, same like if you go for a JavaScript MVC framework like AngularJS, the important question is always, where do you get a critical mass? Because whenever you use something that just has too small of a mass, you have to be kind of risking that this thing will collapse one day, because there won't be that many winners, and there's still around 3,000 CMSs out there, and most of them are not going to make it.
So before we get to the next thing, there was also a question. Oh, you know what? That almost leads us into the news portion. How in the world do you find the time to blog as much as you do?
Actually, that is actually very, very hard. It's really hard because a typical blog, I mean, if you're kind of lucky, you get one done in an hour, but realistically, it's usually more 3 to 8 hours per contribution. And I still have a business to lead. I have 17 employees, so we kind of need to get about $2 million through our company every year just to keep it running. And I got to take care of that too. But I think that the fun thing is I'm really passionate about what we're doing on Too Sexy Content, and I realize that actually most people just never figure out these things unless you show them examples. And so it's kind of for me just a way to kind of also show people how to do things, and of course also hope that they on the way discover the things that we do.
And I think the final question, Joe has some more, is I was curious, for people that haven't heard of Too Sick, we didn't really get into this. We probably should have started with the question. You know, like what kind of business do you focus on, or what kind of customers, and you know, what can people, you know, have Too Sick do services for them?
Could you repeat the question? I didn't quite get that.
Oh, I was asking about Too Sick, and if folks haven't heard of Too Sick before, you know, what kind of company is it? What kind of work do they do for their clients?
Okay, basically we're your more or less typical classic marketing-oriented web agency. So of course we have developers, but our output usually has to look nice. Our customers usually come because they want a website and not because they want an application, which is not necessarily typical for DNN. DNN has a lot of developer-style people in it that don't have a real focus on the visuals. And for us, the visuals are extremely important. Things just have to look nice, sexy, and that's our core focus. We also do SharePoint. So a lot of the things that we do on SharePoint, we have about 25% of our business is SharePoint, and a lot of the things that we learned from there we're actually transporting into Too Sexy Content, because we just see the things that Microsoft did well, plus all the things they messed up. And there's a lot of those too, and we're just trying to build a lot of those lessons learned into Too Sexy Content.
I don't know how many people will pick up on this, but I thought it was really funny how you were saying, oh, we need to serve these clients, they want things to look good, they want it to look sexy. Oh, and we do SharePoint too. Joe, did you have anything for Daniel before we move on to the news bit?
SharePoint is mostly for those clients who don't care what it looks like. But no, I think you covered most of it. You know, it's always interesting to hear, you know, different backgrounds from the community members and hear about the types of customers they're serving. Really do have a pretty broad base in the community, so it's always good to hear those stories. So.
Yeah, and so this is a very interesting episode because we're all in different places than we normally would be. Normally Daniel's in Switzerland, right? Switzerland?
Yeah.
Yeah. So normally Daniel's in Switzerland. Normally Joe is in Ohio. Normally I'm in San Francisco. Daniel's in Miami. I'm in West Palm. Joe, you're in Seattle, or right? Seattle?
Yeah, I'm up in Bellevue, Redmond area.
Yeah. So we're all in different places, all with internets that we haven't used before, and so far so good.
Yeah.
All right. So to the DNN news. So it's been kind of a similar news month as it was last year, or excuse me, last month. But the big news, of course, the big thing is DNNCon is this week. So that's why Daniel's in Miami. That's why I'm in West Palm, and Joe will be joining us here shortly after he gets done with the Microsoft MVP Summit. But we got DNN on the water happening on Thursday. So there's a select lucky few that joined training early enough to get a seat on those boats, and so we're going to be catching some big fish, and Daniel and Joe both are going to be joining us on those boats, so that's going to be an exciting time to see which one of us gets the bigger fish and gets the bragging rights, because that's a really big deal here in America. I don't know if it is in Switzerland. I think it's a little bit more difficult to fish there, but I might be making assumptions.
And I'm actually more experienced with fishing with spears and bush knives and stuff. And I think that's not really going to count here, so I'll just see what I can do. Maybe my hands can work it out or something.
And I'm going to be coming in off of a red-eye flight. In fact, I'm going to be coming straight from the airport down to the boat. So I may just be sleeping all afternoon.
Yeah, it would not be the first time I have a picture of Joe sleeping at a community event. All right, so that's some of the news there. We got DNN training happening on Friday. There's still a couple seats left, but literally only a couple. So if you guys want to join us at DNN Con, whether for the paid training or for the actual day of, DNNcon.com. That's DNNCON.com. Feel free to register and/or choose to get some training. So we have that going on. Our co-host here, he's also going to be doing the keynote. So maybe you should give people a little preview. Like, what are you going to be talking about the keynote?
So keynote, I'm really going to be talking about what's happening in 2015, sort of where we're going. We've just made some changes in community over the last couple of months. We're starting to see some new things happen in the ASP.NET world, and those are going to be impacting what we're doing in DNN as well. And so we're really going to talk about where we are going as a community, where we're going as a platform, and we're also going to be recognizing our newest DNN MVPs at the event. So who knows? There may be some new MVPs. We'll certainly have a number of repeat MVPs, but the news will be first announced at the DNN Con, so should be a good weekend.
Awesome, sounds good. So some of the other news I have here, Clint Patterson's blog posts. He finally got all those done. I think he has like 22 or 23 different blog posts about getting started with DNN development, and they're fantastic blog posts. So. That's filled up pretty much all of our community blogs area for a while. So if you are interested in development, especially if you're not a developer, though that's probably your best way to get into development is to see Clint Patterson's blog posts on the DNNsoftware.com site. And then there's also Daniel Mettler. You might have heard of him. I think he might be with us today. He has a ton of blog posts on there, and so I just since you're with us, Daniel, and there's so many of them. You know, you've done some MVC Razor stuff. You've done some Angular, and I was just kind of curious, like, where do you get your inspiration for all these various blog posts that you've been creating?
Basically, it's all from real life. All the things that we do in our company, and we always run into the same problems that, like, somebody will start working with Knockout, somebody will start working with Angular, and we just can't handle the knowledge management if too many people work with a lot of things. So we always have to sit together, standardize, reduce to certain levels, and basically after doing that, it's already clear what I can contribute. So that's always just part of the working process.
Nice. And the final thing is there's been some module releases, some of them in the store. You know, I can't help but mention that one of them happens to be hotcakes, of course. We had 1.7 ship over the past 30 days, and Onyx Tech, they have a 50% sale going on right now, and they've had several module releases over the past month, and so there's a lot of activity with Chris Onyx over there. NetLogic is having they have an LMS that's 40% off right now. It's their autumn sale. There was also an HTML5 Shiv JavaScript library released by one of our DNN MVPs. So that's a really nice addition to our ecosystem. And we mentioned this one last month as well, the DNN User Import-Export tool. Apparently that's had another update. I found that really cool because there's a lot of us using Bootstrap, but it does require that you have a Bootstrap skin, but it just helps with some of the common things you might do with things like sliders and whatnot, which Daniel, I'm sure will show you how you don't need that today. But then there's also the 40 Fingers DNN Style Helper. I've used that myself. I use the heck out of that. It's a nice skin object. That's had a new release, and as well as Engage Survey. And so that's all the news I have for this month because everything's been focused on DNNCon. Do you guys have anything that you might want to mention?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that Style Helper. You know, a lot of things that we do in the core platform, but sometimes some of the best stuff is done in community. And Style Helper's been around for quite a while, and Timo continues to evolve and grow that, and it's always great to see community activity. On the blog front, one of the things that I did want to mention is we're always looking for new bloggers on the DNN community site. So if you want to blog up there, talk to Will or myself, or send an email to community@dnnsoftware.com, and we'll see about getting people set up. We really do want to make that a community hub or a community location where people can come and talk about different things that are happening in the DNN community. We do keep it strictly community focused and not commercial focused, so that we don't get a lot of vendors just coming in there and using it as a marketing tool for their products or services. But really, if you've got something to say about community, that's a great place to get the word out.
Absolutely. All right. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and hand over the reins to Daniel. Daniel's going to show us how to make some very sexy content. Well, actually, there was one thing, but I'll save it till after his presentation, because I forgot to do it last month. We have the site of the month thing that I want to do. So if you have a website that looks sexy, perhaps, feel free to send it to us, Joe or myself, over Twitter, or put it in, and we'll choose one to focus on every community hangout. And so with this, Daniel, go ahead and start sharing your screen and show us some sexy content.
Okay, great. Am I on? I think I am on, huh? Okay, perfect. So I think the first thing I just need to do before we even start too much is kind of get my screen to share here. I hope this is going to work properly. So you should be seeing my screen now.
We do now, and it's a lot of me. There we go. It's good.
Okay, so exactly. What I need to say at first is because we've been working with our system so much and everything, we kind of forget to say what it's actually about. We kind of just with it and what they should be doing with it. So I just created a tiny little mock-up picture here just to quickly explain that it's actually just all about combining templates that any web designer creates with user content and then making it look great. And if you look at the history of DNN, this is something DNN's never been able to do. DNN handles the, let's say, the skinning, but it doesn't actually do anything for the content. So actually, once you've had the professional guy create the stuff around it, usually the content sucks because it's usually added carries and very normal people that have absolutely no idea how to work with HTML and things like that, and so they will be kind of lost. So I'm just going to start out with showing 2-3 simple examples just to understand what we're talking about. Now, I'm not the designer myself, so if you don't think this looks great, that's totally fine, but you can use it to make it look whatever you want it to look like. So if you look at this website, this is the website of the Vatican Bank, and this is a typical example of a website which just has to look nice and clean, and which, of course, for example, needs to be responsive. Screen starts shrinking, it should behave properly, and doing this requires a lot of CSS and tricks like that. This specific picture that you're seeing right now, of course, looks very, very simple, but if we go into something a little bit more detailed, you'll just notice that you'll have things like maybe tables or things like that, which simply are not that easy to edit in a way that actually still behaves correctly. So you need the web designer to be able to apply something to it to make it work nicely, and the end user just can't do that. If I go to an even nicer example here, I have some press photos of the cardinals that are in charge of the Vatican Bank and behavior, which we're all used to expecting. But if an end user adds these pictures, it's impossible to edit for him. He can't do it. There's no tool in DNN that helps him do it. And we've all seen the examples showing something like a standard DNN installation where everything is in the WYSIWYG. And if we're totally honest, it doesn't work. You need an HTML crack to edit it, so it's not really customer useful that way. And doing things like getting it to wrap properly, to resize properly, needs a lot of CSS and a lot of just tiny things that have to be applied. The light box work correctly, to tap it, things like that. This is all just not that easily done, and our customers cannot do that at all. Written for our customers that it looks nice even after they edit it, and there's just nothing in DNN that does it. I'm just going to show another 2-3 examples. Maybe could I just hear, Will, are you guys still seeing me, just to be sure? Yep, I still see you. Good.
Yep, we're good.
Okay, perfect. So this, for example, is a website of the Swiss Social Security. This is like where every Swiss person has to pay some money in every month from their wage, and they'll get some money back when they get old or unemployed. And again, we have components which have to wrap properly and behave properly. We also have completely different things, like, let's say, documents and things like that. And again, if you would solve these kind of problems with different modules every time, the end user has to get to know so many different interfaces just to edit everything, because everything works a bit different. And this may sound simple, but at the very latest, when things like start going multi-language, or you need version data or something like that, and every module has a different concept of doing this, it gets really, really nasty. So other things, of course, here's Ricardo. This is like an eBay in Switzerland. eBay doesn't have any followers in Switzerland. Ricardo does everything here. And same problems here. You have all these topics, like, let's say you would like to have websites with retina pictures. Our content editors have no idea how to do that properly, so we need to pre-package this know-how in the HTML and CSS so that he only or she only has to add the pictures and do things, and everything else happens automatically. And this is just something DNN's been terrible at. If we're totally honest, DNN by itself is not a CMS. Well, DNN with Too Sexy Content is a CMS, and that's basically what it's all about. So this is more or less just the background of it. And I figured to just do a short demo, I'd actually use this picture that I just created, and I'll upload it into my website, and then see what else we can do going on from there. So, by the way, if you have any questions, just go ahead and ask them, and I'll see what I can do. I need to make sure that my web matrix is running, and I think it isn't. So just give me a few more seconds.
Yeah, and while Daniel fixes the web matrix thing. Just remind everybody, feel free to ping myself on Twitter at Will Stroll or at Jay Brinkman. Ask your questions there, or do that on the Hangout page, and we'll ask the questions to Daniel on your behalf. So any questions at all, just let us know.
Perfect. Okay, so while web matrix starts here, I'm going to show you, this is the live website, Too Sexy Content, 2SXC. You can also just say Too Sexy, for example. We've had to rebrand it a little bit, key it down a bit, just so that, because we actually have people that say, love your module, but I can't install it because my customer wouldn't understand it. So we changed that a bit. And so just to do a quick explanation of how this works, in Sexy Content, everything has these mouse over buttons that appear to do things. And there's always the edit button, there's always the add another element button, or the add one, which will open a dialog. And these just appear on every item because depending on what you want to add it, you'd have to choose that. So the UI is always very consistent, and it's very simple. And the web designer can quickly implement this himself. And you'll also see that if I go to something like, here are these documents, again, the same behavior. And if I go into the edit, if we're totally honest about it, content is not a very complicated topic. I mean, these are just input fields that somebody needs to configure. There needs to be a certain diversity and drop-downs and dates and things like that. A very neat trick, by the way, is that we're using the DNN file reference. So if you rename the file or you move the file, the content still works because it'll look it up every time before it renders it to the user. And also, multi-language is extremely important to us. It's just something that's never been handled properly. And we really think that the solution we use here is that the editor can choose on each field whether he wants to translate it or not. So you'll see something like these fields are locked because they should just inherit the value from the original language, while here this title has been modified in French, this has been modified, but all this information is identical in all the languages, so there's no need to type that in again, and it'll also help when you want to keep things updated. Okay, so I have my web matrix here. Let me just make sure this works, and Sorry if I'm switching windows a lot here. This is just making sure that I can edit this afterwards for you. Okay, so now as I start my picture here into this, just to kind of show how it works. So I'll just quickly add some modules. Content has like two modes. One of them is called the content mode, and one of them is called the app mode. The main difference is that content is usually something very simple, like a picture and some text, and so the user doesn't really want to configure a lot when he uses content. So what I'll have here is I'll quickly add a block of content which will contain the picture. Now I hope that even with this tiny screen size I'll get this to work. And let me just look. I'm not quite sure whether that worked properly, but let's just try that again. Otherwise, I'll have to go to full screen. It might make things a bit more difficult for people to watch. So let's. Okay, I think I got one in there now.
So what were you trying to do there? You're trying to drop the module into another module? Is that what's going on?
No, just into normal pane, but because my screen is so small for the video presentation, it's a little hard. It's a bit tricky to hit the pane zone here. There we go. Okay, so I think I've added two modules now. Exactly, let's close this. Now things should get a bit easier. What the user, the end user, usually our customer, can then do is say things like, for example, here you would typically want to add a little design element, like a horizontal line, just like that. Very simple, no big deal, and then you can say, okay, that's it, I want that. And you see this was all Ajax, it's really nice. And then he'll say, okay, I'd like to just add something, maybe he'd want to add a video. In my case, I just want to add some simple content. And again, through Ajax, I immediately see a preview of what this would look like. So I could say, no, I would actually like this combination with the image on the left side, or something with the image on the right side, where it's just 33% wide. So I can immediately like preview what I'm going to add in a second. Maybe I just want to add like a title, because afterwards I'll add a module. Okay, here it is. So this is just very simple to use because the customer always sees what he's going to be getting. And the moment he says, okay, I like this, he can either press edit or he can press save. I'm just going to press save now. And I will now go in, and of course I'm going to add this picture. So I'm just going to create a what is QSFT, and it's a simple system to combine additional templates with user content and output on some HTML and CSS. So again, this is just the very basic stuff, and now I'm going to upload the image. And what's also nice, I can, like, for each content type, I can say where the images are stored. So with this, I haven't specified this here, but very often people will like have a template just for their employees, and they just want to make sure all the pictures will then be in that folder of the employees, and they can say all the employee pictures are here, and the editor won't be able to mess up the file structure anymore. And I mean, to be honest, everybody's seen a website just tends to grow a bit, and after a while things get very, very confusing. Okay, it's probably trying to access my server net share.
So Daniel, I notice you're using Telerik RAD editor here for some of this content or for some of these features. So are you actually using the provider, or do you have that hard-coded in? Because I notice you also have very different styles in the core platform.
We're using the provider, and we're also very, very unhappy with the Telerik, actually. It's the solution that we have, but we don't like it. It's just we're not able to fight all the wars at the same time, but I'm also just hoping that DNN will provide a better solution soon.
Yeah, so I think you're going to see in 7.4 we're actually working to incorporate a CK editor provider rather than the Telerik editor provider. There are certainly some challenges with Telerik that we're aware of, and I think we want to, as a community, use the or package bundle, if you will, the best solution that we have available in the community with the platform. So I think you'll see in 7.4 a CK editor provider is the new default standard. So.
Okay, that'd be really good. What we're also doing now in the newer versions that we're Joe, can you? Yeah, we're removing most of the toolbar buttons because since content is now handled by 2Sexy Content, the end user doesn't need a lot of the features. He can actually just mess things up in most cases. So I've added the picture and the stuff here, and as you can see now, it works. And let me just quickly go out of full screen mode here, just to resize properly, of course, just the way we're expected it does. And we always have to remember, a normal customer of ours is not able to do that. In the earlier times, we tried to instruct him how to apply CSS classes and things like that, but it's just terrible. I mean, they would never really get it to work. It would always work like 2 or 3 times right after training, but not for much longer. And so this was very simple, of course, the option available. And there's a lot of features in the background, though, like fields where you can use a Google map to set a pin and then use that information to visualize addresses and things like that. There's all these number systems, all these texts, and there's even a V creator. There's data versioning. If you look in here, I can also apply changes, by the way. And I can say they're not published yet. So the end user, somebody else will say it's published. So there's also this, just the very basic workflow functionality where I could go in and say, okay, don't publish this, and maybe I would also like to apply some presentation information, and maybe say the heading has a different kind of visual presentation. I'm going to skip that. So now as an editor, I see the changes, but the end user doesn't. And this just helps a lot in real content editing. We always think if we see these videos where people show content editing with DNN, they must have never worked with real customers, because real customers can't do all that technical stuff.
So, yeah, so Daniel, oh, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, one of the other changes in 7.4.0 is we're actually adding a workflow API, which may actually help you quite a bit in 2Sexy Content for doing even more complex workflows than a simple approval one.
Yeah, that sounds like a great thing. I've also that a lot of customers more complex. Whenever we try to show a lot of workflows, I know it from SharePoint, for example. A lot of people want SharePoint because they think their workflows are going to save their day. And in reality, when they realize what these workflows actually mean with who's in charge and who gets the messages and how many messages, they end up realizing they just had versioning so that it could undo something that went bad, but they actually don't want the entire overhead of actually going through workflows every time.
I found that a lot too. And somebody in the community, Mr. Jonathan Sheely, we've known him for a long time, he's pointing out that you're doing this on your live site. Is that an intentional thing? Or is that... Okay. Interesting.
It's intentional.
Okay.
It's absolutely intentional. It's also that I figured that if I finally make such a picture, I'm going to have to put it on the live site, so I figured might as well do it in the same go. And of course, nice. I'm going to fix it up a bit. But yes, if we're honest about it, most of the work actually happens on live sites. I mean, of course, there's this ideal of staging everything, but in reality, it doesn't happen. Most people just don't have the resources to do that. And so this is pretty real. Okay. Shall I continue, or more questions?
No, please continue.
Okay, so this was the content mode, and the content mode it's important to understand that any web designer can easily create such templates. I mean, if you look at this, this is a older Razor template now, so it looks for what it does. But here you see it prepares a light box, for example, if I would want to have one. And it then just simply shows the content title based on the presentation settings, the body. And for anybody that can read Razor, this is trivial. It also offers tokens. But this is the point and click mode. Now, a lot of people also have the need to combine data with templates, but it gets a bit more complicated, like they would like a list of locations or something. And for that, we created the concept of apps, which you basically start doing something in 2Sexy content, and after a while you'll think, gosh, this is cool, and then you can just click export and you have an app. So there's no like overhead for packaging, and you can create all these cool functionality things that are super easy to use, and they install within seconds. And what's really great is they don't include a DLL, so your DNN is never going to suffer from the installation. You can remove them without leaving any traces whatsoever, which is not the case with most modules. And these apps install on each portal. So if you have a different version in a different portal, it doesn't matter because they're not going to kill each other. So this is, for example, a super trivial app, which just is a simple image compare thing with certain settings so that you can also have some really large images. I hope the video here works. This is nothing hard to make if you're a web designer, but to provide this without 2Sexy content apps would mean you have to create a module, which is a huge overhead, just creating the module, the manifest, the entire stuff, getting the import, export, database tables, etc. And here it's all very, very easy. So this is what it's all about. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a scan. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when you're showing us the templates, you chose to use Razor for your templating mechanism, and I was curious as to what led you to that decision.
Okay, basically, I mean, look at what the alternatives are. Tokens are, as soon as you have any bit of logic in it, they're too. They don't provide enough functionality, like no conditions and things like that. Tokens are really great for really trivial stuff, and they're really great if most of the action will then happen in JavaScript. The moment you actually say I need some sections, a simple example is if there is no demo data behind this link, the link shouldn't appear and the line shouldn't appear. And in Razor, I can just do that within, it's very simple to write. And of course, ASP.NET Forms is not an option. You don't have any control over the HTML, and it just leads you to do a lot of things the wrong way. So Razor's you want to put logic on the server for output.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And with DNN moving, well, okay. .NET in general moving that direction, it's not a bucket already.
Exactly, and we've been doing it years now, 2 or 3 years, and it's amazing. We're not fans at MVC because we're saying a lot of the concepts there don't really work for what we're doing. Also, a lot of things MVC tries to do are already done in DNN, so you don't really need to do those again. But Razor is great, and it just lets us really do what we want to do, and you don't waste so much time trying to work around a view state or something like that. Okay, so what I have here is a naked, let me just refresh that for a second, a completely naked DNN installation. And just to quickly show this again, this is why I always say the videos and the examples I see, they're usually terrible. There used to be a slider here, but the only way you could actually change something realistically is you had to know what the HTML does and what the JavaScript does. So even though there was a WYSIWYG in it, here's the same example. Here, there's some really neat features and things, but I could never give this to any, because probably if she just opened it in Telerik and pressed save, it probably would start breaking because things would happen. And it's absurd to think that in such a system here, any normal human could actually make a normal contribution. It doesn't work. It's much too difficult. It's hard to guess what causes the mouse over. And so actually what this is in reality somebody did this in Dreamweaver or something and then copy-pasted the HTML. But that's not a CMS in the way I see what a CMS should be doing for you. So I'll just quickly walk you through the super simple. What I really love, by the way, about the Forge is that you can install modules without doing complicated things. The shop still has some, the store still has some catching up to do there. Because any module that we publish in the Forge can be installed within 2 or 3 mouse clicks. Let's just hope the application doesn't take too long to warm up. So anybody that's done this will know how this works. I can just say, okay, I'm looking for my module here to SXE, and it'll find it. And here's the one from the Forge. I can just deploy it immediately. Here's the one from the store. Even if it's free, I have to go through a buying process, which just is not as sexy, and we like it sexy. So here goes the installation. I'll just deploy that quickly. And what we've also realized is that the installation process is very important for people to try something. As soon as things get complicated, you just lose so many potential users. And that's why installation, it would benefit if it had less screens, by the way, just so we mentioned that once. Joe, maybe you could get that in as an input. And of course, the license and everything.
Yeah, we are a community platform there, Daniel. So we all can contribute to making it better. So I'm gonna push it back to you. And if that's something that you really want to see done, I welcome any community contribution to make that change.
Hashtag pull request.
Exactly. So one thing I like to stress, one of the changes we made over the last couple of months is really to highlight that we are open source and we do look for pull requests from community, and so we certainly want to work with community to identify the things we need to change them. Highest priority, but yeah.
Yep. I think from my experience also with large customers, there's the kind of customers that it doesn't matter if they pay a license or not, and they'd actually rather pay for it just so they have a vendor they can kind of hold on to if anything happens. And I think those customers, they really need a product that has a paid support behind it. There's other customers, I mean, let's be honest, probably 90%, somewhere between 90 and 99, use the free version and they're happy with it. And that's great too. So I think this is what's really awesome about DNN is that you have both sides. And we have community, should be more community driven, and which should also be very just work, and it'll get the market so that when then other people come and say, I want the standard, which is more or less what I said in 2003, and they want something that they know has a lot of people that are experienced in using it, well, it works. And then they're also willing to pay for it. Because like a company like Ricardo, I think they couldn't really use a product that was completely free, simply because risk management wouldn't allow that. Okay, so we've installed the module. I'm needing some time for the application to start again, which is a little bit boring here. Hoping this will just come up quickly. Let me just make sure that it is still running. Maybe WebMatrix stopped it if I do something. Again. So just so I don't have all this confusing stuff on it, I'm just going to quickly create a page. And this is really what I wanted to show. I wanted to use a completely naked DNN the way it comes out of the box today, just to so that you really see this is A, easy to install, and B, it's very, very easy to customize. So as soon as we've installed a few demo templates, I'm going to show you how to make very simple customizations, and I think a lot of people should benefit from that, because in the end, we don't want you guys to install our design. We want you guys to be able to create whatever you want to do and just make it look nice. Okay, so what happens now is I'm going to add a new module, and I'll start by adding a content module. Oh, I'm having some trouble with my touchpad here. Okay, and I will drop this here. And depending on what you're trying to do, like if you have a special skin with your own templates already prepared, like Nokiko from 2DNN has made some really cool stuff with Too Sexy Content, and of course he's not really going to want to auto-configure everything. This is just the fastest way for people to get started, because if you hit auto-configure, it'll just install the getting started templates, it'll download them automatically from the server, and it's just, it's a Google map, it's a first with a picture on the right side, picture on the left side, it's name cards, things like that. So it'll just download it, install it automatically, and this is what I was trying to say before. The user had to do this manually, and I think that just stops people from even trying it, because things just get way too complicated. Okay, it's happy with the installation, so let's see what happened. So now I can, as a user, say things like, oh, well, let me address, and I may want to have it as an address list, and you see the preview appears immediately. Or as a Google map, I'm not quite sure this works already. Okay, the Google map in our pre-made template still has the bug that I have to refresh the page first because our Ajax loading that we introduced, sorry about that. The Ajax loading that we introduced had the side effect that the scripts had to make sure they still run even if they're in late. So here I had to refresh this for right now. So I'll stay in edit mode, and let me just quickly edit this content again. Oh, didn't want to do that, sorry. Let me just, as you can see now, I could also still change the templates and say I would like to, sorry, having some trouble clicking properly. Yep, I could also say, okay, I don't want an address, I want a video. And again, you get the immediate preview. You can say it's a Vimeo, I don't even know how to pronounce that, or YouTube. So it's all these things which are really simple, but which have been terribly complicated with DNN so far. So let me delete this and also add some apps. The apps, just as I was saying, are much more functional components. You can basically develop entire applications, but we think more that this is going to be simple stuff. Now, I just never heard any questions or anything, so I'm just going to ask quickly, are you guys still online? Everything still okay?
Yeah, we're still here. I've been monitoring for questions.
Yeah, I'm on the bus now. I'm actually going somewhere else at the moment. No, we're still with you, Daniel.
Perfect. Okay, with the apps, we did the same thing. We created some really cool apps which actually just work. You don't have to change. And same thing, if you just click here, it's going to install a QR code app, a cool timeline app, a blue imp gallery. That's one of my favorites. And with that, I'm also going to quickly show you a simple demo on how to change something to suit your needs if you need something different. So,
and so an app basically is just a prepackaged selection of templates and JavaScript and CSS, whatever that piece of content needs, right?
Exactly. Content types where you say, for example, well, I have a picture which has a name and a description and something. It has different views, like how to present it. It has and it also includes the data that was already entered. So you could also create an app like the demo for a lot of apps can be distributed that way too. It'll include all the pictures that are linked in the content. So if you remember, I had this file number 32, for example, previously in some examples. It'll collect all of these out of DNN and package it into a zip file. And if you deploy it to another DNN, it'll also make sure the pictures are in the new place, that the file references are updated and everything. So it's a really powerful concept.
Yeah, chose to install it. I noticed it took a few moments. Is it like downloading those from an external server, or what's happening with the install?
Yeah, the install actually picks it up from the DNN catalog here, from the app catalog, and
okay.
And then, of course, what takes time is this content configuration. It has to copy all the files. And also it has to, as I just said, it includes some pictures, updates, references, things like that.
And when we are using these apps on the same site, does it do the traditional kind of shared content model? Is that something that's it's capable of doing?
So to just understand the question again, you're saying it's like you reuse that information somewhere else.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very easy. So I could like add some simple content here. I'll just add, if I can get the mouse handling to work properly. So, or how about I'll just quickly show it to you on the live site here. Maybe not be the ideal place, but it's just the fastest way to make sure you see it's real. If I wanted to show this rule number 1 up here, I could simply go in and say edit, and this also applies to things with lists. For example, if I like have I like added all my team to one page, and then I'd like to say, okay, this is the guy you should contact on this specific page. Well, then I can just go in here go to Edit, and then instead of actually editing it, content. Let me scroll down here. Here I have some more advanced features. It hides them from you. And here's replace with existing content. So instead of actually saying I want to show what I already input here, I am going to put the rule number 1 here. So I'm using existing content, reusing it, and that was just the assignment, so I don't need to press save anymore. I should now see the same rule 2 times. Not a very useful example, but of course it works.
That's pretty cool. So you have it as the same user experience. I kind of like that. Now, there was an interesting question that just popped up on Twitter by Sheely again, and I think this is a great question because, and for some reason I didn't think of this, but you have a very great solution for a very specific set of users, which is users themselves, right? Not web developers, not designers, not the web savvy people that know how to create like Salesforce reports that nobody else can create, but somebody who's just managing content, the average marketing intern or whatnot. And so, what was the thought process behind making this open source versus selling this as a module?
There's a lot of reasons behind it, actually. It even goes one step further, so I'll answer that thing in a few seconds. If you look at the apps we create nowadays, I'll just quickly show you one of the really exciting ones, like the Blue Imp gallery. Then we're actually going one step further because every app you create is by itself, by definition, also open source. You can't create an app which does everything. And we really believe that the only way our system can really grow, like here I have a nice drag and drop upload, right? So I'm just going to quickly demonstrate this. And most people will say, gosh, this is nice, but I just need to change it a little bit. I just need something different. I need a different logic regarding files that can be uploaded. I want a different way of it to place the files in a folder. And all these kind of things, if you don't do things open source, it's just not going to work, right? I mean, here I'm just going to demo this nice file, drag and drop, upload, and we'll have no ability to do this themselves. That's just reality. People will think it's nice, but they could never get it started on their own. But if they find an open source solution that they can build on, they will think, gosh, this is really nice. All I have to do is tweak it. And the old way with source, you'd buy something or maybe even download a DLL, and it would work, but you'd be pretty frustrated because every time you wanted to change something, it'd be really hard, right? So we just said open source is the only way to go. Oh, sorry, I just had the wrong window here. So we said open source is the only way to go. It's the only way to share. And honestly, we've benefited a lot that DNN is free too, right? I mean, we've created over 500 websites with DNN. And we would not have been able to do that if people had not spent their time giving away free stuff. So we just said we have to share it the same way. Okay, so I've quit sharing. I've said something about open sourcing the stuff. And because my time is running short, I would like to now show 2 more things, especially how to customize something. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's going to put us about 5 minutes over, and I'm okay with that if Joe is. He says he's good. Okay.
Okay. Good. I'll show a very simple example. What we did here is the files are uploaded, and there is actually no information about them yet. This repeater just gets the files from the folder, and not until I press plus does it actually create a record with metadata. So it's kind of a neat trick to solve things, and it just includes the file so the system knows what it is. So I'm just going to say hello, and this has 4 fields now, right? I'm not going to explain them too much, but let's say I have a title and the file and maybe a sorting priority. So now this picture here, as soon as we get through, we'll have a hello somewhere there. Very often, this is probably just in the Lightbox, you saw it in the mouse over, and it says it up here in the corner. And let's just say maybe the person loves the gallery, but they just need to change something. Like they would like to add something, and typically this could be something like an extra field, very common, because they'd like to use a category, or maybe they'd like to mention which product this picture was about. And they're like, oh, I have all these cool pictures where my products are being used, but I just need one more field. And module, this is just impossible to do. I'm going to go to the content type. Here we have the gallery. I'm doing this a bit fast so that we won't overdraw by more than 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm just going to say, okay, I'm going to add a field, and I'm just going to say product used. I'm going to write it together just for the sake of speeding things up. Product used. I could make a drop down out of this. I could make it link to other existing data, but I'll skip that just to keep things very, very quick and simple. If I just added this field, and if I now would go to the same picture, or let's just take the next one and say, well, then I have a new field already called product used. So I would say hello again. And I was actually using the user can already add this data. It's already multilingual. It's versioned. It has everything already built in. And now the only thing I need to do, now we're going to do this a little bit the quick way. Usually you'd go for Visual Studio, but the only thing that's left to do for me now is to edit the template so it'll also include this information. So let's just quickly see where the title is being used. Here it checks if it's in edit mode and things like that. And here it says, so if it has metadata, let's just show the title here. And I'm just going to go for a fast thing here and just going to say, okay, so plus a space for a nice line plus the product. So let me just check this. The title, see it creates a nice variable. I guess now that it'll read in different places. And this is all just open source. You can quickly edit it. I may have a syntax error, yes, because I'm doing this directly on the system, but so far it seems to work. And it says hello again, -2SXE. And to create your own custom look with existing data in such a fast way and to reuse applications and just adapt them so they have your colors, your schema, and your special needs, does that just like 2SXE. So
that's very, very cool.
Definitely very cool.
So, we probably should start to wrap this up. We're already at our 1 hour. Thank you for the fantastic demonstration, Daniel. Sorry you were speeding up at the end there, but I think we used up a lot of time getting to know you. But that's a good thing. It's very good for people in community to get to know each other and be able to put a face to somebody, especially that has been contributing as much as you have. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
that's fine.
So the last thing that I have here is actually I was going to share my screen. That's not it. See, where'd it go? Here we go. Screen share. All right. Side of the month. So somebody that just showed us. Actually, can you guys see my screen? Okay.
Yeah, I see your Google Hangout screen.
You do? You don't see this travelgurus.ca thing?
Now I do. Took a second for it to come.
Okay. So it's not using too sexy cut. A number of modules that were this was one of our submissions that I was going to show last month. But it's a very nice site. It's presenting a very clean and visual way using DNN. So this is a cool site to check. You have your own website that you would like to have featured on our Google or DNN Community Hangout, and we'll choose one of the sites that are submitted. Now that being said, before we sign off, one of the questions that was asked that I wanted to save till the end was, and you can only guess, but this was asked by Clint Patterson, but he's very interested to know what's up with your Twitter avatar. Daniel, you still with us?
I lost you there for a minute.
Yeah, I think we're definitely experiencing.
Yeah. So Clint Patterson was asking.
I'm still here.
Clint Patterson was asking. He was asking, what's the story behind your Twitter avatar?
Well, it seems
think we might be losing
We've
Daniel
lost
here.
Daniel.
Now, but yes, that's
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
No, I think I'm offline again. Okay, that's
We
love.
can hear you now.
He dies. You know, it's like these kind of one of the guests is supposed to have died. It's like this game that takes a lot of drink and you have to dress up. So that's where the picture came from.
Oh, wow.
It was a
Yeah,
mafia.
when I first noticed that too, I was like, wow, I just met her, and I'm like, it's an interesting Twitter photo. The time we have, thank you again, Daniel, for presenting with us, showing us a more sexy way of doing content. And just to let everybody know again, you know, there's time to join us at DNNCon. Daniel's presenting a session there. I have a couple sessions. Joe has I think, 1 or 2 sessions as well. And we have speakers that we would love to spend some time with you, getting to know you like we have with Daniel today. So if not, we'll see you at the next Google Hangout. You guys have anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. And I think Daniel's completely dropped off at this point.
Yeah.
I think they shut down his internet connection.
That's okay.
That's what happens when we do this stuff on the road.
Like this month. So, thanks everyone again for another month of DNN Community Hangout. Thanks, Will, for co-hosting this again this month, and look forward to seeing everyone next month.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.